You know, I probably get more questions about my Hydrowave than any other piece of equipment on the boat, and it's something that I've used as long as anybody out on the tour. I've kind of been involved with it from the very beginning, and there's no question that sound is a really important factor for bass and their feeding. And really, you know, what the Hydrowave does more than anything is you can manipulate the bass and the bait fish in an area by the sounds that it's emitting. So we've really, you know, taken it to another level with the recordings that we have. So all of the sounds on the Hydrowave are actual recordings from the wild of, you know, of the different scenarios that happen, whether it's, you know, spawning shad or bluegills popping the pads or blueback herring or whatever it is. So they're actual sound patterns of shad, of different bait fish. And then we have certain ones that are blended in a series with multiple sounds. So we might have, you know, shad clicking and schooling shad and bass attacking them, all those different things in there. So my favorite and the pattern that I use the most, because it fits a lot of conditions, is the power pattern. So when I'm, you know, covering water and you got conditions where you think the bass are going to be active, I like the power pattern. It's a mix of a lot of those sounds of bass, eating bait, shad, things like that, and it's a great loop. The one thing that I do is I do a lot with the delays. So you get a day like today, we don't have a lot of wind or anything like that. This is a day when it's not going to be natural to have loud, aggressive sound patterns. So I run my volume lower, and I really like a delay most of the time when I'm running my Hydrowave. And what I mean by that is you can hit the delay button on the H2, and you can have it for 15 seconds, for 30 seconds, for 45, whatever it is. I like 15 and 30 seconds. I want to have that quiet time, that time when there's no sound, and then all of a sudden have that power pattern trigger off, or a schooling blitz or something like that. And that, if you're close to the bait and the bass, that's when it's going to trigger a reaction out of them. And that's really what happens more than anything is if you have bass and bait of some kind in close proximity, they're just waiting. The bass are just waiting for those bait fish to show a weakness, to make a move, to do something. And a lot of times having that sound triggers that aggressive, you know, competitive nature in them, and it'll make the bait nervous and move, and it'll trigger the bass, or it'll make the bass nervous and move and trigger the bait, and it all starts. So many times, you know, when that unit kicks back on after that delay, I'll see them, I mean, all of a sudden want to come up busting, you know, 30 feet from the boat. So that's really how I like to use it. So if I'm rolling down the bank, it's a windy day, I'm going to run that power pattern, run it continuous, and I'm going to run that volume up. You know, when you're, you know, throwing spinner baits on windy points and things like that, that's when you want that aggressive power pattern. And a lot of days, you know, that's the way I'm fishing, you know, early in the morning. The times when the bass are going to be more aggressive, when you got the trolling motor on a faster speed, that's the pattern that I like to run. The other things that I really like is I like the schooling blitz, the bait blitz, and I really like the delayed schooling. So that's another sound pattern that we built so that you have that kind of downtime in there, you know, where it's intermittent, you know, it's not a constant sound. You want your sounds to be natural, and that's the biggest thing with the Hydrowave. Is a lot of people think, well, shoot, if a little bit's good, let's crank it up and run it continuous and run it all the time. You want it natural for the conditions. So that's why when you have these high pressure days and slick calm days, that's why we have the finesse and the ultra finesse patterns built into there. That's when you want just subtle bait fish sounds, not aggressive at all. It's very passive sound patterns, and on those types of days, that's the pattern that I run. And coincidentally, by the way, there's not a time that I don't use my Hydrowave, that I don't run that Hydrowave. The thing is I just want to adjust it to the conditions. You know, if you're fishing lakes that have a lot of bluegill and brim or crawfish, that's why we have those crawfish patterns. You know, we've actually worked real hard to get those sounds. You know, during the bluegill spawn, that is an unbelievable pattern to have. When the bluegills are on beds, you know, a lot of bass are up there in the shallows chasing them. You know, the bluegill patterns, or the bluegills popping the pads. I love that one if I'm fishing a frog or things like that. In those northern fisheries like that, you get that sound that you can turn that on and be in a quiet pad field, and then all of a sudden you can activate the whole brim school in that whole area. So today I'm out on the shad spawn. We've got that, you know, spawning bait pattern, and that's exactly what it is it's spawning shad. You can actually have the bait in the area start to spawn because of it. I saw it last week at Lake Wheeler. We were fishing a shad spawn deal, running the Hydrowave. You can pull up to a bank and not see any shad anywhere up on the bank, and turn that Hydrowave on, drop that trolling motor in the water with the speaker there, and all of a sudden right in front of you, it just activates the shad and they're spawning right on the bank. So the Hydrowave is a great tool. It's not, you can't just go drop it out in the middle of the lake, turn it on and have the bass come to it. It's not a fish call by any means, but if you got bass and bait in the same area, if you use the right sound patterns and do it naturally, I think for the conditions that you have, based on the, you know, the mood of the fish and the conditions of how aggressive they should be, in your sound patterns, in your volume, and in your delay, you can be really successful with it. It's something, the more that I've used it, the more times that I see it make a difference. Again, so many times I'll be, you know, fishing along and that Hydrowave will be running and all of a sudden one busts just right there and you can throw right over there and catch that fish. That's all you're trying to do is trigger that school of bait or that bass to make a move in that area. So it's just a great tool to have, and it's something, again, that I use every single day.